Well, g'day and welcome to Dr Dazz Wants to Know Everything. Here's your host, Dr Dazz. Hi, I'm Dr Dazz and welcome. This is Ferg. What am I doing? I'm part of the support crew. And I'll be revoicing Darren. And probably interrupting. Yeah, that's true, I will be. I'm right, thank you. Thank you, Happy New Year to you too. Sorry, he said Happy New Year to me. And Happy New Year to you too. Daz, do you want to tell me about Dr Daz Wants to Know Everything? Mm-hmm. So the idea is I want to know everything. I want to interview experts in a whole variety of areas. There will be people on board from all around the world. So some of them will be on Zoom. And some will be face to face. So we talked about it before, and Daryl thought he might start the sessions with something really light, something easy. We're going to talk about death and dying. Don't go away. So today we're talking to Dr David Holden. Hey Dave, do you want to come in? I'm going to leave, you can sit there. And that way you'll have to hold my wine. Thank you. I want another mouthful of wine. While I do that. So while I'm doing that, do you want to tell people how we know each other?
Sure. I reckon we've probably known each other for close on 20 odd years.
Bloody hell. Is that? Are we that old?
I think we first connected through church search. I think we first connected through church circles and other friends. And I think probably our friendship has developed through the love of red wine and Diana Krall and good jazz.
On? I'm in love. I almost cancelled the interview. I looked her up and she's hot. But the music's hotter.
One of the beauties of palliative care is I do a lot more listening than talking. And this will be one of those occasions.
You'll be talking more than me?
Happy to talk, Dazz. What do you want to know?
Well, do you want to start with telling us what palliative care is? Yeah, what is that?
That's a great question. When I talk about palliative care, everybody knows that palliative care looks after people who are dying. And we absolutely do. But before that, we look after people whilst they are living to help people live as well as they can with a life-limiting illness. And that is the joy of palliative care, is I get to go in and help people live as well as they can. Our focus is on good symptom management, and my focus is on the person rather than the disease. We know all about the diseases, we treat the diseases alongside of the other specialties. Obviously cancer comes to mind, but other illnesses, so neurological illnesses, heart problems, respiratory problems, kidney problems, will have involvement in that space too. And whilst those teams are looking at those specific diseases and maximising life, we work alongside to maximise the quality of life and the quality of the time that there is. At some stage we do the dying stuff, but it's so much more and so much incorporates the living well.
You seem to enjoy it. Oh, you say that you enjoy it. Oh, the joy? The joy in it. When I think about that, I get a real... About dying. Emotions? But you talked about the joy. Are you a sadist?
To be honest, I thought he was going to ask me if I was a psychopath.
We know that already. What do you mean by joy?
So, that's a great question, Dazz. What I'm aware of is I have an incredible privilege of working with people and their families, working with people with a life-limiting illness and those who are supporting them. I get invited to work with people when they're at their most vulnerable, and I would acknowledge what an extraordinary privilege it is. The other thing I would recognise is so far death is something that we all face, and I think as individuals and as society there's some benefits in acknowledging that we are mortal, and because with that understanding I think we can actually live each day a little bit better. So the joy for me is in hearing what somebody wants to achieve and doing our best to help them achieve it. Now, I need to warn you that when I first graduated in palliative care, the magic wand that they gave me was broken. So I can't fix everything. I often get asked to fix the underlying cancer, and I just can't do that. I also was given a crystal ball, but it was cracked. So I can't predict or see the future as well. So I just want to make that really clear. No crystal ball, no magic wand.
What can you say then?
This.
What a letdown. I'll ask you a question, and before you answer, give me What? Oh, he poured it. He didn't give me a drink. So what do you mean by helping people achieve what they want to achieve? If I'm on my deathbed, I don't want to jump off a tall building. I might want to jump off a tall building. That's not the best example. I might want to go skydiving, or is that what you mean?
Yeah. These are...
You need to give me the drink.
So before we started, Daryl said that he thought this is an 80% chance of being less than perfect and a 20% chance of perfection. I suspect we'll be modifying those figures as we go, and you're more likely to see this in the bloopers reel at the end of the Christmas time, and that we will come back and redo it.
I'm not going to cut that out. Sorry.
So the question is, what the hell am I talking about, and what does it mean in practical reality? Is that about it? And that is a great question. And what I would recognise is not only do we try and treat the physical symptoms, so pain is the obvious one, shortness of breath, tiredness. So we talk about strategies so that people can live and work around these symptoms so that they can still live. We also look at the emotional symptoms and the toll not only on the person with the illness, but on those caring for them as well, to provide as much support as we can. Not only whilst the person with the illness is living, but after they've died, to follow up with the family and the carers. Part of our role is to deal with the social symptoms. And by social symptoms is that people might find that they're less able to get around, less able to turn their phone on silent, less able to do things. And there's ways to compensate for that. And one of the things I would highlight in your case is that with what... Sorry, I'll time this. I was going to use your wheelchair as an example. Am I going to... Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I would recognise, Dazz, is that you use a wheelchair to help you get around, because without it, you don't have the same degree of mobility. And these are the sorts of things I look for with our patients. The other thing I would recognise with our patients is that there's spiritual aspects. And when I talk about palliative care and when I look at my patients, I really look at it in terms of relationships. For some people it's relationships with their family. It might be relationships with their function, with getting out in the garden, being able to do the washing, being able to do the cooking. For other people, it might be their relationship with their understanding of God or the universe. And illness often robs us of our abilities to maintain those relationships. And my job, as best I can, with the team that we have around us, is to help support people in maintaining those relationships. I don't have a say over whether people live or die. What we do get a say over is how well people live. And that is where the joy is, because I can help somebody live better whilst they are dying.
You use the term living well. Living with a life-limiting illness. That's what you're really talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's a bit varied. How long you're working with a patient? I guess it could vary from a couple of months to a couple of hours. Before they die?
Yeah. Again, this is a really important question, because I talked about when people are dying that we get involved, and we absolutely do. And we know that we can add so much more when we get involved earlier. So palliative care is not based on a time or an expected time frame. It's based on needs. So when you see a general practitioner, they're often providing palliative care if you've got a life-limiting illness. Where I work is in the specialised services, so I can value add to the general practitioner. But it comes down to the need rather than a time base. The other thing I'd really highlight is, what does living well mean?
Yeah.
And the question I ask my patients to find out what living well means to them is, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself, Dazz.
Yeah.
I'm 50. I've got a PhD.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised it's taken 15 minutes before that came in.
Yeah, I started by calling him Dr Dave, so it's coming already.
Yeah, cool.
Church is important. Friendship. Is that what you mean? And my dog is just saying hello. At me? And oh, yeah. She's saying, don't forget me. Yeah, you also love me. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. What makes your friendships important? What's important?
Hey, I'm interviewing you. You can't get out of it that easily.
So what I'm hearing Daryl tell me is that church is important to him, and I'm a bit suspicious because we've known each other for a long while. Is that it's the relationships at church and the people, and the relationship with Daryl's understanding of God. I've heard that your friends are important. I've heard that your dog is important. And it's that socialisation and that active living is important. So living well for you, I suspect, means managing your symptoms in such a way that you can communicate with your friends, with your family, with your God, with your church family. I would be focusing on you and less worried about mobility, and I'll be more concerned about allowing you have, and I'm not putting this well, and I suspect we will redo this. And for you, it's that focus on being with other people and communicating with other people. Would that be fair?
I guess so.
And it's sorry.
You already gave me a new insight. What about what palliative care is? This is important. It's important we understand what it's about. It's not a horrible...
It's the exact opposite of horrible. I think it's fabulous. And I'll give you an example. I was looking after an older woman where the centre of her household was the kitchen and her cooking. And she demonstrated love absolutely through her cooking, creation of meals, feeding the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. And that kitchen was the centre of her house. And she got to the point where she couldn't stand. She didn't have the energy to stir or to cook. And our solution for her was to get her a long wooden spoon and a chair. And she sat in that kitchen, and with a wooden spoon she pointed to all her children and said, you do this, you do that, you do that. And she sat there and she passed on her memories, she passed on her expression of love to all her children. She also used the spoon to hit them periodically when they didn't do it right.
Could she reach the pot to stir with the spoon from there?
No, but she could reach the kids, and that was all she wanted. And that was what was most important for her, was a kitchen chair and a long wooden spoon. Because for her it was the relationship with the food and the demonstration of love through the food. And this is one of the beauties of palliative care, is the creativity. We absolutely use medications. We absolutely treat diseases and treat the symptoms of diseases. And there is also those other elements which I can only find out by learning somebody's story.
What about... What about when people are too ill? To be in the kitchen? But I want to. No. Or at church?
Or home.
Or at the pub?
Yeah, but
With their mates? Yeah.
that
Hmm?
is
In the last days? What happens then?
So, I'm going to tell you a story because I love stories. I had a patient who filled in their advanced care directive, which was their document of stating what they valued and what was most important to them. And in the section on what they wanted, they wrote, "When I'm dying, I want to be on a hillside in a forest with the sun coming through the trees." They died on the 4th floor of a major hospital in Adelaide in a side room. And they had the forest glade scent. They had the photos of their favourite walks around them. They had the Forest Sounds CD, and they had their family and their walking companions sitting with them. And this is one of the things is I don't have a magic wand. And recognising that we do the best we can and make the best compromises we can. And what I love about that story is because it was through knowing what that person valued, we could approximate it as best we could. And if you were to ask me what's most important to me for your listeners and your watchers is to let people know what is most important to you. How do you want to be cared for? What are the things you value? So that if you're not able to tell your treating health professionals how you want to be cared for, that someone else can act in your stead.
I have always been? I've always been worried about ending up in a hospital on my own. Yes, there are nurses around. Anyone who has a disability. Most of them don't have time or specialist knowledge about disability. I set up an enduring power of attorney way back. Is that the way you do it now, then?
Yeah. And again, a beautifully simple question with such a complex answer. That communication difficulty that you're worried about, I've got a lovely example. About a month ago I saw a patient where the Italian interpreter told us they were speaking Greek. The Greek interpreter told us they were speaking Italian. They were supposed to actually be able to speak English very clearly, and we thought there was a lot of confusion. And what we discovered is once we found the hearing aids and that they could hear us, the confusion went away, as did the language difficulties. And what I would recognise is that many people have trouble communicating. It may be because English isn't their first language. It may be because they have trouble enunciating their words. And you are absolutely right in that I too worry that sometimes in the busyness in the hospital system, we don't have the time or take the time to get to know our patients as we should. And I think the best way to mitigate that, to make it safer, to make it as safe as possible for you, is to actually write down what is most important. So these days we talk about advanced care directives, and we're just having a look at the legislation and the Act at the moment to make it a little bit simpler to use. But it's an opportunity to write down what is most important, what you value, and it's also an opportunity to nominate someone who would speak as if they were acting in your shoes, if you were unable to tell me how you wanted to be treated medically.
Would that just be for people with disabilities, or would... Oh, would I know that?
So I think I actually believe everybody needs one, because everybody is going to die. And because we cannot predict the future. And I'm not worried so much about the documents, and I really aren't, and some of my colleagues would be cursing me for that. What's most important, I think, is the conversation. And what I would absolutely recognise is identifying someone to trust. And what's really important is I don't want them to say what they want for you. Because it might be that I love my relative and I want them to live. And it might be that my relative says, actually, if I can't get to church, if I can't meaningfully communicate with my friends and families, then my focus is not on prolonging life, but the quality for time that is left. So I don't want to know what I want for you. And I'm not asked to act what I want for you, but to act as if I were you, and what is most important for you.
What are ways that people do that in Australia?
So in another great question, and I appreciate this is much broader than South Australia, and my advice is find out what happens in your local jurisdiction, because it is different in every state and territory. The underlying principles are the same though, and this is worldwide. It's an opportunity to say who would speak on your behalf if you couldn't speak, and how you want to be cared for. And the other thing I would highlight is it will change over time, and that is okay. I tell my patients, if they're not happy, you just rip it up and we do another one. And we recognise that it changes, but it's a conversation, and having that conversation is really
So you're really talking about control, and in that control would be decision making? Say that again? So as a person living with disability, having control and empowerment is very important. I imagine in your work that'd be more important.
Yeah. I believe, and one of the pieces of work that we're doing at the moment is making sure that everybody has an opportunity to be a part of the medical decision making. We often talk about capacity, the ability to make a decision. And what we would recognise that often in the past is it's meant that people who may not have capacity or who can't make a decision have been completely excluded from the conversation. And what I would support and what we're working through at the moment is to ensure that everybody is invited to be a part. And it's called supported decision making. So if you can't tell me how you want to be treated because you can't make that decision, I would still want your involvement with some prompting from your friends and the people who know you about what's most important to help guide us in that decision making.
May I make a decision now? I'll guide you in your actions.
So for Dazz, I think he's got capacity to choose which bottle to open. I'm not entirely, he's got capacity to choose when to stop. But that is a very good idea.
You touched on the importance of talking about death.
Do you
want to explain more around that?
Yeah, it's certainly light, isn't it?
Lots of messages when you look at it. So I trust the curtain with a bow. As you were talking about.
Oh, it's my turn now, isn't it? The way I see it is that for the majority of the people I care for and for their families, I help somebody live as well as they possibly can, for as long as they possibly can. And at such time that they are dying, I treat them with dignity and respect. And for different patients, these look different. I have some patients who say, I'm not interested in how long, I am tired, I am ready, just focus on symptom management. For some people, that treating with dignity and care when they are dying means that they want to be at home, and we try and support that. I have other people where it involves being in hospital because they don't want to be in the family home where their families will continue to live. So I take the opportunity to ask people about not only what is most important to them when they are living, but what is most important to them when they are dying, so that we can put in the plans to try and achieve it as best we can. And the beauty of palliative care is we've got plan A and plan B, but we've also got all the other backup plans as well. And if it gets too hard, then hospital is always a fallback, and we look after people in hospital. If I can't get you onto a hillside under a tree in the spring sunshine, we'll do our best to bring that to the ward. So I talk about death to find out what is important for people when they are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that I ask is the one that I asked you before. Tell me about yourself. Because it paints a story, and on that we can plan together.
You give me a new insight into your work. And I hope I don't need your work professionally for a long time. I think I do. I hope you're there.
To be honest, when you do, I'll get one of my mates to look after you so we can sit and drink red wine together, mate.
On that note, what's 2021 got in store for you? Dave?
So I'm David Holden. I'm a palliative care consultant and I work in the north of Adelaide, which is a city at the bottom of Australia. I have 4 days a week where I get to look after patients and their families, which I find life-giving and bringing me joy. I get to spend a day of the week working for SA Health, looking at the planning for the system of palliative care. And the beauty of that is the changes and what we can do in that space can positively impact many lives in South Australia and for years to come. So this year for me, I'm looking forward to being able to do a little bit of travel, at least in Australia. I'm delighted that I've just been able to go to the movies, having realised I didn't get anywhere in 2020. In fact, I realised I hadn't been to one of the shopping centres yesterday in 2020.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to living a little bit more. I'm looking forward to spending time down the beach with the dog. I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more running and a little bit more cycling. And I'm looking forward to continuing to care not only for individuals and their families, but to work with the teams, both locally and at a more systems level.
Well, thank you. Thank you for helping me drink wine. And know a bit more.
Thanks, Dazz. It is an absolute. I love being able to share this. If you have an opportunity to tell people what is important to you, please do so. Make the time. It's a wonderful gift to them as well. And thank you for the opportunity to come and drink some of your wine. That has been a true pleasure as well.
Might get you back again later. That's it? Oh, we'll see you again and the next Dr. Dazz Wants to Know Everything. Bye.